The sub has been sitting for a few days and we're ready to go to the main painting stage. And luckily this thing is all one color, so this is going to be pretty easy. As I said before, I thought this was bronze and I had something else planned, but when I came across RC Sub Guy is the name of his channel, and I'm following, at this point I'm just following exactly what he did because it looked really good. But anyway, I decided to go for a more rust look and picked up some of this based on his recommendation. This is Metal Effects, Modern Masters Metal Effects Iron Paint. This is paint with actual iron particles in it. And what we're going to do is we're going to rust those iron particles. They make various products for rusting effects, and then there's the activator oxidizer that rusts this, but he actually suggested using just regular vinegar, which is what I'm going to use. So I'm going to mix up a 50-50 mix of this and vinegar, and you can see, you'll get a better look at it later, but it's very thick paint. So we're going to thin it out to a good consistency. And let me prepare everything because I need to get this. This is a one-shot deal. I can't take this off and redo it. So be back in just a second. Got my iron paint and my vinegar mixed up. This is way more than I actually need. However, I kept adding more of one or the other, trying to get the right consistency. Old brush, because obviously you're not going to want to use this brush again for anything else. And cover everything because rust is great at staining. So that now, what all we're going to do is just slather this stuff on. And we're not being precise at all, we're letting it pool. Just literally just splotching it on, make sure to cover everything. The windows here, I just got to be sure to put on a slightly thinner because I don't want to be too liquidy and then get underneath the masks. But other than that area, everything just gets a nice thick coating. One bad thing about this stuff is that it stinks badly. Gotta be careful around the photo etch too. And just get every nook and cranny. Don't worry about if it's too thick or too thin in some places. And it dries because the amount of paint, iron, on the model is different in various places, and the amount of vinegar attacking it is different in various places. We're going to get a lot of variation on it, and hopefully it's going to end up looking really cool. And what I'm going to try, I hope this works, I'm going to try to do a time lapse of this because it'll take about, well, it's going to take several hours for this to fully work, but it's going to take about 4 hours or so when you start seeing what will be close to the final results. I gotta figure out a different way to do those stairs. Get a smaller brush. But anyway, I'm gonna do a time lapse, and so you can see the rusting in action. And I think that will hopefully look pretty cool. Hopefully my video card or my memory card in my camera is gonna be up for that because it's gonna be time lapse over about 4 hours. And God, this stuff stinks. While the Nautilus is drying for the second time, don't worry, I'll get into that in a minute, want to talk about the base real quick. I really wanted a nice wooden long base for this thing, like, because that's how you usually mount battleships. You see these nice wood bases, plaques that are really long, the length of the ship. Not gonna be able to find something that size that's also hollow, because I need to be able to put the battery and the switches underneath. So, just got back from the craft store, and luckily this was like the first thing I found, and I think it's going to work. This is a balsa wood little box from the craft section, the woodcraft section. Very cheap, it was only $4. It's not that great of quality, and I don't know if I'll be able to stain it the way I want. However, plan is I'm just going to take the top off, take off the hardware, and then mount it this way. And just drill the rod into what was the bottom of the box. And that's it, $4. I got a base. Works almost perfectly. It's not super ideal, it's a little higher than I want and not as long, but beggars can't be choosers. So I'm going to start pulling this apart and experimenting with a little bit to see what I can do to fancy it up a bit. And here is the Nautilus after its third coating of rust. Yes, I said third. What happened was, the first time I did the rust, which you saw in the time-lapse video, it looked pretty good. It was a little bit lighter than I wanted. However, I missed a few spots, and the silver and the black showing through on a few very obvious spaces just wouldn't work. And I was apprehensive about putting a second coat, because if I didn't have the second coat matching the exact same ratio that I had on the first coat, I knew there was going to be trouble. However, I didn't know any other way to fix it, so I tried stippling on a second coat, and what happened was exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. It came out way too dark, and the stippling didn't help it. You know, it didn't look mottled. It looked, you can see a sharp contrast between the dark areas and the light areas. So I had that. Then, following RC Sub Guy's video again, he said you can take just a paper towel or something and then rub off some of the rust. And he made it look really easy, but I tried that and it really wasn't working that well. And where it did take off the rust, it took like all of it off. It was taking it off in chunks. You can see some of the silver through there. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I can strip this thing without breaking everything. And so I said, heck with it, let me try a third coat. And that's what we have here. Now, the third coat, it looks okay, but it is a bit more mottled than I wanted. It looks like a real rust bucket now. It's an interesting look, but it's not exactly the look I wanted for the Nautilus. I did want a bit of a mottled look, but I think this is a little bit too much. But we're going to go with this because it does kind of look kind of neat. Where it stands right now, I'm going to try to wipe off a little bit just of the excess powder. See if I can bring some of these rivets out without completely, you know, getting back down to the silver again. And then I'm going to take off the masks off the windows, and we're going to hit it with a gloss coat. Normally I would never use gloss coat on a model. However, again, RC Sub Guy did it, and it really, it represents the water. I'm just fixing a bent rail here. It represents the water, you know, the moistness of it, and also what it's going to do is going to sort of it's going to moisten the rust on here, and it's going to darken everything. Which is, I did want a darker look to this thing. I didn't want a bright orange rust, and I'm hoping that it will also smooth out some of the variations in the kit. So we're going to go do that, and we'll be right back. So gloss coated this thing a couple times, and that really darkened the rust. And which is kind of what I wanted in the first place, but now I'm regretting a little bit. I think it's too dark. So we are virtually like 90% done here, or at least I can call it done. However, at the moment, I'm trying to bring back a little bit more variety
in the surface here, and so I'm covering it with some MIGs, or excuse me, AK rust streaks. Oop, there's the camera. And I'm just putting it along the, you know, any place where I think it needs it, the recesses, and I'm going around all the panels where all the rivets are. And then around the rivets, at least, I'm going to wipe it off with just a cotton swab with a little bit of odorless thinner if necessary. But this is still wet right here, so it's a little bit more brown than it's going to be. But this is just going to add a bit more variety, and it's going to put the rust where I want it. That's the one thing about this Modern Masters of Rust. You really don't get to choose where the rust ends up. A little bit of extra rust. The only other thing that needs detailing here is the scutters. I believe that's the correct term. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. But anyway, this is where the compartments fill with water to sink the sub. And I covered it with a little bit of streaking grime. Just the idea of as it submerges, you got, you know, running water coming out of it, so a bit more variety. And just got the cotton swab, a little bit of odorless thinner to sort of soften what I just painted on. And so we're going to do this, and then I think I'm going to give it another gloss coat because I'm not happy with the way the gloss coat tried. It's kind of blotchy. But do this and then finish up the base, and I think we're done. And here we are. We are complete. I was going to show the building of the base, but I kind of skipped over that, to be honest. But we are done. I got everything mounted, starting with the base that I just finished. We have the brass tube from the ship going into a plastic tube, which you can sort of see around here. I temporarily fixed it in place with super glue and then packed the inside and the outside with epoxy putty to hold everything real tight. Got my wiring and my switch all done. The battery has a little bit of sheet steel glued onto it, and I got a magnet right there to hold everything in place. Thought I had some Velcro to do this, but I couldn't find it, so that works just fine. The base is actually a little bit bigger. Well, I wanted something bigger, and then I kind of realized once I put it down here and next to the ship, it's actually, I could have gone with something smaller. It's pretty big, at least in lengthwise. And I went for black. I wanted a wood base, brown base initially, but I went with black because I got a brown ship and a brown base. Not a good combination, so went with black just so there's some contrast. Now, the ship itself, starting off with the main thing here, excuse me, the rust. The rust it's a decent effect. I'm not sure, I don't think I used it to its potential here. It's a fun thing to play around with, but I'm not really comfortable with the randomness of it. When I did that first coat, it was looking pretty good, but I missed a few spots. What I should have done at that point is just go over those missed spots with a little bit of reddish brown paints to touch them up. I think that would have been a better idea. Wish I thought of it at the time. And after that, I put the second coat of rust, which really screwed it up, and then I did the third coat of rust, which was somewhat fine, a little bit blotchy, but it really darkened it, which is what I wanted initially, though I'm kind of missing that lighter rust look from the first coat because there was a bit more of that silver from underneath showing through. The one thing I really don't like is the gloss coat. Again, I was following RC Sub Guy's directions to the letter. He put a gloss coat on afterwards. The issue I'm having with it is the smoother areas are reflecting from the gloss, but then there's the rougher areas of the rust which are not reflecting because it's rough surface. So it really gives a blotchy appearance to the kits, which I'm not too happy about. I would have liked to go back and dull coat everything. However, by that point I already took the masks off the styrene, so that was not a possibility. But over and all, that's about it. It's a pretty fun kit. I enjoyed building this, even despite all the lighting. And speaking of the lighting, turn these off, give it a little push here, boom. Now this is actually the second time I filmed this. Yes, I do see now I have a huge light gap around this fixture, so I'm gonna Gonna fix that once I turn the camera off. But we have our lights here, our sublights. That's how it looks coming at you. And lights on the sides. Again, probably, well, I could have gone with a little bit more light on the inside. Not too much. It doesn't look too bad. You can't see well on the inside, but that's mainly due to this clear styrene with all this ironwork in it. There's not much you can do, I think, to really see on the inside. You know, I would have added one more light, but if I added a whole bunch more light, I don't think it would have really mattered, because you still have all this mesh to look through. But I got rid of most of the reflection off of these things, these sublights, by adding the what I call fish feeders now. So that helps with the reflection quite a bit. And that's about it. Overall, it's a very nice kit. I recommend people picking it up. It was a lot of fun to build, even with all the lighting. And I enjoyed it. I almost would want to go and build it again and try it with a different type of rust look. I even considered stripping this at one point and trying the rust again. However, because of the interior and the lighting, really not feasible, and all the delicate photo etch, really not feasible to do that. But there we have it. Let me go fill this light gap, and then we'll take some beauty shots and we'll call it quits. Thanks for watching, everybody.